Welcome to another Terrific Tips podcast. I'm Terry, your host, of course, because you can't spell terrific without Terry. We had to play off of that. I am here with the one, the only Joseph Varghese, and I'm so excited to have him here with us today. I have a frog in my throat. I met Joseph not all that long ago, actually, through a mutual friend of ours. And I've had the opportunity to get to know him a little bit over the last 6 months or so. And I think he is really incredible. He has a wonderful mindset. He's down to earth. He's a family man. And before I get too much into that, I want to introduce you to him. The reason he's here today is because he's able to be all of those things. And he's also a six-figure earner, multiple six-figure earner. He's a wildly successful man. And you're probably thinking, who is this guy? I have not met him before. And that's why he's here on this show. I'm excited to share him with you and talk about some of the things that he has been able to tap into that has helped lead to his success over the years and how he helps others do the same in their business. So, a little bit about Joseph. He is also known as the breakthrough engineer and is a growth and process strategist. He's super passionate about empowering entrepreneurs to stay focused, driven, and living to their best and highest potential. For over 18 years, he's been immersed in the science of peak performance, productivity, and gamification, which is why we get along so well. Since 2005, he has been leading Success Circles, a peer momentum accountability and advisory board community for entrepreneurs and coaches. Success Circles has supported hundreds of entrepreneurs and coaches to win the game of life, work, and play. So, without further ado, Joseph, thanks for being on the show today.
It's my absolute pleasure, Terry Watkins, to be here. Thank you.
You are most welcome. So we had the opportunity to connect through a mutual friend, and I'm so grateful for that. And I want to talk about your transition into Success Circles. So what was the thing that sparked for you to do Success Circles?
Thank you. Well, I am an engineer. It's where I used to be years ago. I graduated college 25 years ago. I got on the journey of being an entrepreneur about a year after I came out of school, but I didn't figure it out. I was a consultant for a number of years, working at some major organizations, JP Morgan, Pfizer, GTE, Verizon, Citibank, and I learned a lot as a consultant. And at the same time, I didn't know how to be an entrepreneur. And then something happened to me in my life. It's a number of huge life shifts, and particularly my dad had his first stroke. My mom had a heart transplant. It had me recognize how important life is and how important harmony is in life. So after my dad passed away, I moved into a bare apartment in Bayside, Queens. And it became clear to me that having a mastermind and an advisory board, having accountability was important, especially to maximize focus. I was living way too many deja vu days. And I found that too many entrepreneurs out there had deja vu days, kind of days that repeat over and over again without making progress. And we all want progress. We all want to move forward. I was working with some of the top coaches in the world at that point. I had a top coach, Tony Robbins, his top coach, Michael Nitti, the top coach in his organization, Tony's organization. And we'd meet twice a month. And at these meetings we've had, these coaching sessions we had, I wasn't making as much progress. It was like when I realized what needs to happen between these two coaching sessions. And that's where we created this accountability framework. Mm-hmm. And since then, things have grown and I've reached a lot of my dreams, met the woman of my dreams, myself, my wife, my beautiful wife, Shirley, of 2 kids. I've run multiple businesses. I live a pretty great life, and it's just embracing frameworks, playing games, having fun with it all and beyond.
I love that. So what really kind of sparked the momentum for you is noticing your own stuckness, if you will, and finding some kind of method to that madness of helping you kind of break free of that, and using your engineering background to kind of put a formula to it for other people to be able to encourage and support and follow that. So brilliant.
Thank you.
That's awesome. So what's been one of the biggest challenges that you had to face in dealing with all of that? I know you were going through some family stuff with your your mom and your dad, and I hope they're well. And like, what was some of the biggest challenges aside that really affected the speed at which you were able to bring success circles to life?
I think it's a building team out. Initially, this was an idea. It was like a hobby of mine. And then I met with Michael Gerber in 2007, went to an event of his called the Dreaming Room in San Diego. And he's like, well, you've got something brilliant, unique, accountability for entrepreneurs. It's pretty affordable, the model you have. He's never heard it like it. So he challenged me and I put the brand success circles around it. I think, but as far as challenge goes, initially it was just a team around it, kind of connecting all the pieces, really getting out of it being a hobby. Michael talks about this too in his books. You can be a technician stuck in an entrepreneur nightmare, or you can be an entrepreneur. You can really become an owner, and getting out of the doing of things, getting into the leading of things, the owning of things, made a huge difference for me. And
Mm,
as you can imagine, being an engineer, knowing how to do it all. So I've got a background in process engineering and computer engineering. I can do it all. There's nothing I can't do.
sure.
And in fact, when the plumbing goes down the house, I can resolve it. You know, like anything in our household, I can figure it out.
Handyman to have around.
Exactly. And my wife calls upstairs to change the diapers for our son, who's 2 all the time because he's big now. He's 2 years old, um, and at the same time, as a business owner, what I've learned over the years is it's so important to embrace leverage, create team continually, have
Mhm.
people work with you, especially if a brand is bigger than ourselves, especially if the brand's going to now create a legacy, impact thousands of people. So the big challenge that was my way for years is just having to kind of do it on my own. And then what got me out of that is just really embracing team. And then we
Mm.
actually launched a team program in our community too, called the Momentum Team, like a mastermind team, advisory board component of it. And like really all of us winning that game too as well.
Awesome. Yeah. I've noticed that for myself as well, that things started to really shake loose for SpinFrogs once I got out of the own my own job kind of
Hmm.
mindset. And there's nothing wrong with that mindset, but if you have goals or dreams that are bigger than you have to break free of the owning your own job and let it be bigger. So, when it came to your team, is there a tool or a practical process that you needed to really put in place to allow you to scale like that?
Yeah, I mean, it took building a team, hiring virtual assistants, having people take on certain roles in the communities. People have been around for a while, some of our legacy members, leading calls, having the framework built in online so it's scalable. So we use certain apps to make things scalable, to allowing us to buddy up members. So basically, our process is unique. Basically, we pair up people as momentum buddies, basically accountability partners, where they're paired up for 2 weeks at a time. Um, so it's basically all the things that go into creating a game, like a game that works, um, and like, applying the basic strategy we learned from Jay Abraham and other greats in marketing world. Michael Gerber was my mentor, mentioned before, into the formula too, so we can scale it. And that's been the big thing for me, right? So just scaling the model effectively and using tools toward making it happen. And then also having someone on my team who manages operations handle a lot of it so I can focus on leading and speaking and focusing on my zone of genius. We all have our own unique zone of genius. Zone of genius, as per Joe Polish and Dan Sullivan, strategic coach, talks about this idea is that 2 or 3% that we focus on a continual basis. The 2 or 3% of things we can do that gets us in the zone that we can do repeatedly that generates more revenue, maybe gives us some joy too at the same time. It's clarifying what that is for ourselves and putting attention on those things while we delegate everything else, including, for example, the things we're pretty excellent at.
Yeah. So that's brilliant. I love that you tapped into that zone of genius. How did you do that? Like, how did you figure out what your zone of genius was?
Getting feedback from people, doing personality profiling tests. So when I was an engineer years ago, when I operated as a consultant, I didn't know I was an extrovert, right? I didn't know. And I worked in these settings and I get burned out after 6 months. I'd make a lot of money. I get consulting assignments. I was a consultant and I had my company back then. But like after these these the work I was doing. And I was an IT consultant. I was managing internet security at AIG. That was my last corporate job 20 plus years ago.
It's pretty cool to say, isn't it?
It is.
The last time you worked for somebody else was over 20 years ago.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Over 20 years ago. Exactly. But it was, I would need to take 6 months, 9 months off, and I was made a lot of money to be able to do that. But it wasn't until the following year, 2002, where I ran the marathon in New York. I won the lottery for the marathon, where something shifted in me, where I started realizing that I was energized being around people. And then sometime later, I did the Myers-Briggs test, and it pointed out, hey, you're an EFTJ. And that it all made sense. So ever since then, I've been doing a lot of these personality profiling tests. I did a Kobe a few weeks ago, for example, and DISC, and there are others out there. I find the more we know about ourselves, like what wires us, what drives us, the better we can be in life. So it's just a matter of honing on those things. So one of those things is I'm an extrovert. I love talking to people. This conversation, you and I'm going to be high, like energized after this call. Right behind me, I've got a gold mic, and I have a couch that I sit on, right? I just chill out there and I have conversations with people, particularly conversations that lead into more opportunity, where I can maybe coach people on adding value to what they're doing, or there are multiple businesses I have, so partnerships I engage with. So why not a gold mic to sit down and chill, just sit back and have conversations? That's my zone of genius. So the more I can do that on a regular basis, the more things progress, and the more I can outsource and leverage my team and create leadership around me, around everything else, the more everything moves forward.
Sure. So how often do you take those personality tests? Because I've taken several of those myself as well over the years. I'm a psych major, so I took those tests a lot in school, all of them, the Carl Jung one, the Freud one, like I've taken the Rorschach tests, I've seen all of them over the years. But how often should we be taking them, and do they ever change? Like, do the results shift over time?
I've heard some of them change, like DISC. My DISC has changed over the years. I've heard Enneagrams kind of stays consistent overall. So I did that. For the most part, I've done each of these tests maybe twice, you could say, over the years. And the results are somewhat similar. I did Myers-Briggs was my first one many years ago, like 16, 17 years ago. And I think it's good. I think what's more important is to review the results and ask ourselves, is this consistent? And then we keep evolving in life too, based on the choices we make, the skills we develop, we keep evolving. So as we see ourselves evolve, or as we get feedback from people that we've evolved in certain ways, or we've progressed in certain ways, it's good to redo the test to see what's elevated, and there's an opportunity for all of us to keep elevating, especially as we focus on these things. A big part of my business is about progress, and it's about tapping into compound growth as people, as individuals. And that's a simple factor of making today better than yesterday, or this quarter better than last quarter, or what lessons did I learn from 2020 or from the previous year, just so we're not living deja vu days. And if we're present to those shifts, those minor tweaks, the feedback we get, then we're getting better, we're progressing. Whereas most people in the world, I'd say they're comfortable regressing. They're comfortable being comfortable in life. And so with that said, I do believe our personality shift a little bit over the years, and it's always a good thing, maybe every 3-4 years, to redo some of these things, especially if we take like 10 minutes, 20 minutes and do. It's not a big deal.
So when you're looking at your tests and you're being present in who you are and the feedback that you're receiving, how often are you checking in with that? Is that a daily thing? And how long does it usually take to check in with that? Because I know that's one of the things that I hear all the time from people, of being so busy, they can't tell up from down sometimes. And that's why they live those deja vu days.
So with regard, I'm very passionate about checking data and like metrics. That's the engineer in me. I think it's important, like the whole idea of math and hard, or hard and math, being able to be hard connected and be able to look at numbers and specifics. You're in the marketing world, for example. I'm sure dashboards, metrics are part of what you do for your clients, and you're excellent at that. I think as individuals, I believe it's really important for us to kind of check in to see like how we're improving. So like I have a dashboard I look at every day, every morning, and I check off certain things, and I check off on my list. Did I adore my wife? Did I call my mom up? Like the basic things, those fundamental things that I know, kind of the big rocks that kind of connect everything else together. Um, and I have checklists for everything I do too. So even before this event, I knew to reboot my computer. I knew to take a cold shower to shift my energy a little bit from the work I was doing before this. I knew to message our nanny upstairs to ensure that our daughter is taken care of, as well. So there are a bunch of things I check on a regular basis. I mean, not just personality, but just everything I do. And I think it's like aligned with that whole world of like biohacking, like hacking ourselves, like how we think, how we function, our bodies. And I can go deeper into that topic too. I've hacked every part of myself, and I've had to over the years based on certain genes, you could say, that were given my way. My mom had a heart transplant. My dad had a stroke. He passed away of a stroke. So
Mm.
it's recognizing these things. We have to like, how do I get better? How do I improve myself? How do I fall in love with improvement? And what does that even mean, to be able to tap into that on a regular basis?
So I do want to tap in a little bit to that because one of the things that you're really passionate about is gamification. And I studied gamification in school. And oftentimes business owners think gamification just means having some kind of reward system built in. And I think that's like surface level of gamification. Gamification goes way deeper than that. So, how do you use gamification to biohack yourself?
Good question. The biohack.
It's fun.
Yeah, it's a great question. I mean, I relate everything as being a game, and it's got to be fun. Like games are fun. When I was in
Oh man, if
college,
it's not fun, we're not doing it.
exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. Right. So like, everything is a matter of like having fun, playing games. So biohacking myself, for me, it's the level of clarity I have, the level of presence I have. If I show up in a certain way on an event or a meeting, being very clear-minded, something's been great in the process of that. So for me, it's like improving that each day so I can show up and tap into my zone of genius each day. And I encourage people to do that as well.
Mhm.
And it's just like realizing that there's maybe a formula to some of these things we can do, or things we can repeat on a daily basis to get us better. Last year, as part of the spiritual community I'm part of, they fasted for much of January, and it was amazing. And I had so many results. My January 2020 was extraordinary. And then I went to February, somebody gifted me a musical theater improv class, and it was amazing. I was able to show up in this immersive class for 5 days before COVID became big, and that was extraordinary, being able to tap into that because I was able to dance and sing in our household. So knowing that in 2021, the options came and like, okay, well, I know what worked last year. So let me do that this year. And 20 January was one of my best months ever in terms of revenue, opportunity, growth, speaking on stages, and just so much happened this past month. And
Mhm.
it's just recognizing that last year was a game. Every month's a game. Every day is a game. There's opportunity to get better. It's in reviewing the game, reviewing the whole playing field, and knowing who's playing with me that allows me to really step up. And I think that's an important question to ask ourselves: who's playing with us in this playing field? Who are the other players? Who's there? Who's got our back? Who do we need to let off the playing field because they don't have our back, or they don't have our best interest, or perhaps their values have shifted too? Maybe they're not into health, or they're not into growth, or their values are different. And
Mhm.
so to answer your question, it's just reviewing that. And it's also having the right partnership, the people you're engaging with. You and I, for example, we talk typically once a week. We're in a group call, mastermind call. There's opportunity there to review certain things and make it fun too. But the key thing is having fun with it, like laughing about it, having play with it, um, and then having some touch point partnership to kind of review these things. My wife's amazing. She's also exceptional in the game she's playing in the world. And I call it game, like we're all playing games. Her game is she's a top endocrinologist in New York. She performs at a high level in terms of what she does. So every morning, as part of the game we have, it's like getting her household together, minimizing friction points, putting out poopy diapers, taking care of our kids, making sure our daughters prep for a class. And like, for me, it's a game. Like, and sometimes I manage multiple things at the same time, so I can ensure that my daughter's taken care of, while I'm also being on calls with customers or listening on a podcast, perhaps. And so a bunch of things happen. But when it's all a game, when it's fun and it's engaging, when we can review things, it's key. A big part of this is journaling. I know I'm talking a lot, so I want to be careful about this, but I journal a lot, and I have been since 2002. And without journaling, without reviewing numbers, it's like, once again, it's like deja vu. And then
Mm.
having dialogue, like talking to someone who's awesome like yourself, talking to someone who's awesome like my wife, talking to someone awesome like our mastermind or my buddy in Success Circles, allows me to get in dialogue, kind of re-optimize, course correct, pivot each day, and get better.
I love that. So, one of the things that I really love about what you just said is really taking life as a whole as a game, because it really kind of removes stress. Stress becomes a non factor if it's just a game.
Yes.
So, nothing can throw you off your game because it's a game.
Yeah.
So, if it doesn't go the way that you thought it would go, it's not anything to stress about. It's just something to recognize and say, okay, next time that comes up, what can I do different? And now it's a game and it's not stressful and it gets to be fun and educational. And that's just an amazing way to live because you really just free yourself completely.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
I want to take a minute.
Or sport or game, however people contextualize it, whatever means that for you. It could be even a dance class, perhaps, if you see life as being a dance. So whatever frame, and I use games a lot, and people get, and some people don't play sports. And I played sports a bit growing up, but whatever it is for you, it's like, it's a journey, it's a dance. When you recognize it as that, there's room for less attachment to things,
Mm,
where we can step forward and be committed to our why. And when we know our why each day, that why pulls us forward. And over time, that why needs to get shift, perhaps, or based on certain circumstances, the why, certain parts of that why stand out. For me, my why is family, right? And right now, with my mom, we sold our child at home. I'm more present to certain aspects of my why with my mom and so forth than I'm used to, than I usually am. And it's all good and it's great. And 2 weeks from now, it'll shift a little bit as we know that, we're pulled forward into life, because the why is the driver of everything.
yeah, absolutely. I love that, and I think it makes it really relatable to look at life through the lens that you have experience with, but you're always looking out and seeking ways to bring that joy in. And I want to take a minute now and say, for those of you that are listening, he's already dropped so much knowledge and wisdom. So thank you, Joseph, for doing that. I really appreciate it. But comment, like, subscribe, let us know that this information is serving you and is helping you right now to make whatever shift or minor adjustment you need to make, because all it takes is a 1% course adjustment to end up in an entirely different place if we're being conscious of the course adjustments that we're making. So let us know, what course adjustments are you making just based off of what we're talking about today? We'd love to hear from you. And before we move into the next section, Joseph, what's the best way for people to get in touch with you, to follow you and be engaged with everything that you're doing? Because you're definitely making waves in the world.
Thank you. Thank you, Terry. So easiest thing is successcircles.com. That's our main site. If you go to rulesforsuccess.com, and we're going to have you on our platform, our podcast too, as well. That's our blog site. It actually forwards to a section of our Success Circle site, rulesforsuccess.com. And if you want to email me, my email is simply joseph@successcircles.com. It's Joseph with JOSEPH at successcircles with an S.com.
Awesome. Thank you. And we'll make sure to include all of those links in the description section for you that are watching on YouTube. And for those of you that are listening in the podcast syndicate, it will be in the information section for you there as well, so that you can get those links. If you're listening while driving, don't try and write that down. We've got you covered. And so as we kind of continue to talk about this accountability that you've created with Success Circles, and the gamification that you've created inside of your life as a whole, not just your business, but your life as a whole, something you had touched on was journaling and being able to take the time to write down things. What are some of the things that you write down on a regular basis in your journal that have served you to continue to make those micro adjustments in your life?
Great question. So when I didn't have access to this years ago, in 2001, after 9/11, I went into this downward spiral. I was watching a lot of TV. I lived by the Trade Center in New York. So my mind was on what happened to the world. And I went to see my primary care physician. He prescribed me antidepressants, like Prozac at the time, was what I was dealing with. Now, I'm grateful because I didn't get that prescription. I found other alternatives, fish oil, for example. And I got present to this one distinction in life. through Tony Robbins, through Napoleon Hill, the idea that we're focus and intention, or focus and intention go, energy flows.
Yes.
So journaling gave me access to that. So I started focusing each day on what are opportunities that are showing up from challenges in my life? Where am I actively raising my standards? How can I make today better than yesterday? Like basic things on that level. Things would shift. Opportunities would start showing up in my life. And in 2002, as I started doing this, I won the lottery for the New York City Marathon, and which is awesome, you know.
Yes.
And like I ran track in high school, but I didn't really continue much since then. And that had me get out of my comfort zone further and go out and move. And I lived by the Statue of Liberty in Jersey City at the time. So like journaling gave me access to like shifting perspective, seeing opportunities. As the idea of law of attraction came in 2005 with The Secret, or as it got expanded with The Secret, I mean, it's been it's age-old concepts with that. I started seeing more come my way just simply by focusing on contributing, adding value in the world, focusing on seeing synchronicities in the world. And then with success circles, as we started attracting more like high impact people and people who are playing at a bigger level, six-figure earners and much more, it became clear that inviting people to be on their edge, like how can they be more on our edge each day? How do we show up and be bold, make bold requests each day became a key thing. Mm-hmm. So these are all things I've journaled over the past. And as I journaled each of these things, opportunities or worlds open up for me in the process of this. And with Success Circles, so when we started Success Circles in 2005, I basically took those ideas, those things I was journaling already, gamified it, and basically got two people in dialogue where they would now share these things to each other. So one person would share and they would get feedback from their buddy, about 3 minutes of feedback. Then they would ground that feedback with their why, their big why, whatever drives them for their day, their why in life. And the call would ground in gratitude, 20, 30 minutes. Then we'd test this out with our members. We meet them once a month in person at a cafe in New York. And just getting in dialogue of those journal entries made a huge shift now, especially if people were willing to journal these things in advance before their buddy call, so that that call gets streamlined. Mm. Then we just figured out a whole model around making that like really progressive. Every 2 weeks, getting a new buddy, finding someone who's a step or two ahead of you to model each day, who can give you a quality feedback based on whatever you're dealing with. A whole bunch of things that go into this. So journaling is essential. And I find that from the point of journaling, if you're able to get in dialogue with someone who's a step or two ahead of you, where they can give you feedback on a day-to-day basis, it advances that journaling to like a whole new degree.
Absolutely. Because from what I hear, you're not journaling about, like, I've heard people say, like, you journal 3 things that were frustrating or irritating, and then 3 things that you're grateful for, and 3 things that you got a chance to do, and three things you're looking forward to doing, because it takes like 9 positive things to overcome 1 negative thing. And that's a wonderful way to journal, but then you can find yourself in a rut really quickly doing that. So I'm wondering, when are you releasing the journal for all of us to buy so that we can start answering these questions?
That's a good question. People have been challenged me to do that. So I believe in the next couple of years, we'll have our own journal. Absolutely. Yeah.
Yes.
And whoever's listening to this, our audience, anything you want to focus, where focus goes, energy flows. It's a very core concept of everything. And if you truly get that, and if you look at every book you've got on your bookshelf around personal development or growth or leadership, you'll see that's a core tenet there. Mm. Then the way to now make that into something concrete is by journaling, and then asking yourself, well, what's the opportunity here, or where can I now take this distinction and make it make it actionable? Mm. What can I put out in the world that pulls me to be a better leader, a better listener, a better person overall? Like, how can I add value? How can I become a leader in my field, perhaps, based on these distinctions, these things I'm learning? And when you can do that, when you can create something concrete in the world, like I did with Success Circles, for example, or I did with the Power Team, or our blog site, or a number of other ventures we have, it now has people see you as who you're creating for yourself. And that's pretty awesome, because now there's more accountability with that. Or with your business territory, SpinFrogs, or this podcast series you're doing here, there's accountability with that in partnership, because it's out there in the world. And that's pretty awesome. It's like basically getting the journal to dialogue to now actually doing something that's actively like adding value in the world that people expect it to be even more awesome than we think of ourselves.
Yeah. And it's always amazing to me how the question, how can I add value? How can I support somebody? Can totally change how you do things and how you show up and what you create. Like this whole podcast was created out of that very question. How can I support my small business community in a time when everything is shut down? We were closed, nothing was moving. And I had gone through a minor depression myself at that point in 2022, because I went from being an in-person hugging and networking and in a room of 30 people, like 3 or 4 times a day, like all the time, to nobody except my husband. And I love my husband, but just one person giving you a hug every day is like pales in comparison when you're used to getting 100 hugs in a day from 100 different people. So there was a thing I had to kind of cope with that. And what came out of it was, well, I love these people. I still want to support these people. How can I do this that's going to add value to others? And the answer came was, well, if you could be a fly on a wall for high-end conversations that other people were having 5, 10, 15 years ago, when you were starting about thinking about being a business owner, would you have listened to them? Yeah, I would have. I would have been all over that. So then that's where the rebirth of the podcast came from. But that question, how can I add value to the world, to the people in my life, is such a powerful question. It's such a good one to ask. And I love that you've dropped some of those questions as nuggets for our listeners to listen to. And I hope those of you that are listening are writing down those questions. And if you're not, go back and replay that part so that you can get those questions, because they're really good. And it really does put a different perspective on what you're focusing on. And Tony talks about it all the time. Where focus goes, energy flows. So if you're focusing on the negative stuff, if you're letting the news dictate your life, you're missing out because you're holding yourself back.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Pretty well said. Awesome. I love your podcast. Terrific tips. It's awesome. Your branding of it, I think it's incredible value adding in the world. The more value we add in the world, the more comes back our way, especially if we're committed to really adding value and showing up powerfully, which you are. So I really appreciate you, acknowledge you for really showing up the way you are. I'm excited.
I appreciate that, Joseph. Thank you. So what's next for you? What are you working on now? How can we as a community, the people listening to this live or after the fact, how can we support you in the thing that you're working on?
Thank you. So my passion in business is success circles. It has been for a number of years now. And I'm going through a leadership training to really take that to another level. And so our customers tend to be entrepreneurs who have traction, who are looking to get better, particularly customers who really recognize the power of peak performance. And as we build this out, as we continue to build this out, 15 years I've been doing this with Success Circles. I am also working on launching another brand. When we first started Success Circles, it was called the Embrace Group. And what had me build Success Circles into what it is, went to a peak performance event, and there was a young woman at this event. This is in 2009. I'd already been coached by Michael Gerber to build what we built already. I already acquired the brand Success Circles. But I didn't take certain actions until something happened in June 2009. What happened is at this event, there was a young woman, 26 years old, 3 days after this event. And she was high on life. She was like so ecstatically charismatic at this event. She jumped out of planes. She sold real estate. She was involved with all these endeavors. No one expected this. At least I didn't. She took her life. And it just had me present that we all need feedback. We all need to get in dialogue. All need to get loved, because we have no idea what people are dealing with, what crises people are dealing with out there. And it's so important to be listened to be loved, to be connected. I had an opportunity at that event to get on stage and talk about what I was doing. The leader of this event, Carson Tang, a good friend of mine, he would have given me access to it. And it occurred to me afterwards, if I had, perhaps things may have shifted. So one of my outcomes is to go back to our original brand, the Embrace Group, to build that out as a kind of a catalyst to people around the world who are dealing with, let's say, negative thoughts, to have now them be able to get in dialogue where they can perhaps share their why, share their gratitude, focus on intention, focus on where they see opportunity, maybe even share their challenges and what they're dealing with, just so they can be loved on, to be heard. I see you, I hear you, and what you say matters, as Roper says, for 20, 30 minutes a day, especially at the start of the day.
Mm.
So one of my outcomes this year is to bring life to that again, that brand, and shift the conversation of suicide around the world. Realizing it's just a conversation. Malcolm Gladwell talks about this as well in his latest book. In India, the country that my parents are from, I was born in New York. India happens to be the suicide capital of the world in terms of a country where, each year or last year, 200,000 people made that choice. And I just want people to see that there are other options out there. And you're loved. You're loved if you choose to. There's support out there, especially in this country, this amazing country we live in. I won the lottery 47 years ago. And I won the lottery of life. That's what I mean by that. And I want people to know that you're wanted and you're loved. So I'd say that to people, and certainly pray for me, encourage me, because my intention is to really build what we have as a vehicle to be able to impact people, so that we can build this other foundational arm to be able to kind of shift that conversation around the world.
That's
And that's
beautiful
what I'd
and
say.
so needed. I mean, I was just in a conversation a week, 2 weeks ago with, I'm part of a girls' book club. We read fiction novels, mostly thriller, horror, scary stuff, because we're all a little weird. It's okay.
That's awesome.
But we
Yeah.
were talking about, there were 17 kids under the age of 17 in the county that I live in on suicide watch in the hospital, because they can't see their friends, they can't go play, they can't do the things. Some of them were because they couldn't have a prom. Like, imagine your life without a senior prom. Like, I met my husband we dated, and that was our first official date, was my senior prom. If I didn't have a senior prom, would I even be married to him? I don't know. Right? Like, that could have changed my entire life to not have that. And there's a whole class of people that don't have that. And so this suicide conversation is so powerful and so important. And so many people want to have it, but I think are scared to, or don't know how to, so that it doesn't come across as condescending or anything to offend people, because that's not the intention. The intention is pure, I think. So having something that's going to kind of change the conversation around it, make it more accessible for people, is absolutely beautiful. So I know I want to support you in that. I'm sure the people that are listening want to support you in that. Tell us one more time the best way to get in touch with you so that we can be part of this movement you're creating.
Thank you. So joseph@successcircles.com. That's my email address. You can go to successcircles.com and access the contact field there. Or if you want to access my calendar, if you go to jv.zone, that accesses right to my calendar directly, my Google Calendar. And if you want to have a conversation on partnering together, more of a partnership, doing things as team, please reach out to me. I'm happy to connect with you.
That's fantastic. I do have one more question for you.
Of course.
What advice would you give your younger self? And I'm rephrasing it to how I normally ask it, because I think this is just easier. What advice today would you give your younger self now, if you were to run across him?
Yeah, I'd probably tell my younger self that you are loved. You are loved. You're resourceful. You're extraordinary. And I'd probably give my younger self a lesson in compound growth. I live by that now. My whole business is based on that concept of compound growth. It took me years to figure this out. There are things I squandered, as a kid around that. So I would probably just remind my younger self that everything in life compounds. So just make the right choices, and where do you want to be in life, and basically allow that muscle to build and keep building that muscle, and realize that the good things in life that you want will compound, whether it's wealth or happiness or anything you want. And that's what I tell my younger self.
That's phenomenal. And I have found that to be true. If you, especially if you're grateful, I
Yeah.
noticed in my own life, the more gratitude I give for the things that I have now, the more things I have.
Yes.
So the more grateful I am for every interaction like these, the more of these amazing conversations I get to have. So I thank you for taking the time with us today. I honor you for all of the amazing impact that you're having in the world, in your life, and in your children's life, because the power that they are seeing through the habits and the behaviors that you and your wife have, the leg up that they're going to have in life is just unfathomable. I can't
Thank you.
even. And that's so cool. And so thank you for
You're welcome.
everything that you're doing.
Terry, can I share a tip around that, around gratitude?
Please,
That
yes.
if let me see if I can find it here because you just highlighted it just now. So we'll have it right here. So in 2012, I was going through a rough patch in my life, and I was part of a accountability group we met in person beyond success circles, like a men's group. Some high impact people. One of the members was we ran a hedge fund in New York around real estate, and it became very clear to me, like Hurricane Sandy came and all these breakdowns in my life, that I wasn't focusing on gratitude enough. So I a friend of mine in previous year gave me one of these clickers. Right, this one here is orange. It's not the one I had back then. And you get on a plane and you see the flight crew. They'll click on this. They'll click on it. Right, and if you go to a seminar, sometimes you'll see people count attendees. They walk into the seminar. So I just had this breakthrough. I said, what if I use this as a means to measure my gratitude each day? So every day, laying in bed, not being married, not even know my wife at that point, I got to 10,000 points of gratitude over the course of maybe 2, 3 weeks. It shifted everything because I started waking up being resourceful. I started going to bed every night being resourceful, feeling resourceful. My dreams started like compounding in a positive way because they were now supporting me because I felt resourceful. Opportunities came my way. I had this consulting opportunity with a company called Power Consulting that came out, and I lead a company called Power Team. So it's a company called Power Consulting. They hired me to kind of handle aspects of their business, CRMs, marketing.
Mhm.
Met my wife. We had our first date on December 26, 2012, as I was doing all of this. And so to your point about gratitude, it's a simple way of gamifying it. You can go to Amazon, buy digital clickers for $2. I've actually bought hundreds of them. At our baby shower for my daughter, my daughter's 5.5 now, but my wife's baby shower for that, we gifted everyone these $2 clickers. Made a huge difference. My nephews and my niece, they still have it, for example. And I have one of these by my bed every night. If I remember to, I'll pull it out. If I'm stressed out, if I'm not feeling resourceful, if I had a kind of a weird day, if I'm angry with my wife or whatever is there, I'll do 10, 20, 30. And as I'm holding in my hand, at some point, as I pass out, everything just melts away. And it just like everything becomes clear. It's just, it's gratitude.
I love it. That is so cool. I'm going to go get a clicker now.
Yeah.
That's fun.
You're welcome. It's simple. It's $2, $5. Amazon. You can go get as many as you like, give them away, and it's measurable. You talk about gamification. You're measuring, and I challenge everyone here. If you get one of these things, how quickly will you get to 1,000?
Yes. That's fun. So those of you that are listening, we want to know how quickly you got to 1,000. So make sure you comment in the comments because we're going to be paying attention to that. If you're watching this on YouTube, if you're listening to this on another podcast network, reach out to Joseph or myself, Terry at SpinFrogs. We want to know, when did you get to 1,000? How long did it take you to get to 1,000 points of gratitude in your life? And the first 10 to 20 are probably really easy. It starts to get a little harder at that after that. So I look forward to hearing that. And thank you again, Joseph, for being here. I so appreciate it in the
My
time.
pleasure. My
Everybody
pleasure.
who's listening, till next time, this is Terry signing off.